Hey, this is Madhu here from NoSleepCreative. Today we'll learn how to procedurally generate a series of cyberpunk-inspired tech growing lines with shape layers and create path expression. I hope you love the show today. Today's expression is rather long, so if you ever get stuck, please refer to my wiki for the code to use, and also check out my expression library while you're at it. Okay, so before we get into making the cool stuff, we need to learn about how the createPath expression works. The createPath expression takes in four arguments: an array of points, the in tangent, the out tangent, and whether the path is closed or not. And today our only focus is on the first argument, just creating a series of points, so you don't need to worry about what the other tree is. And if you want to read more about this expression, you can go. This page can be found on expression.ahanser.com. And you might think to yourself, what's the point of like using this expression? Why can't I use the pen tool? Well, learning the create path expression allows you to create paths that might be impossible to do manually, such as animated sine wave curve, procedural design and animation, such as this plants growing, and the techie lines we'll be making today. You can also save this expression out as custom animation preset and reuse it over and over again, thus allowing you to save time. If you want to get deeper in the expression, I recommend you learning to build your own tools and setup. Alright, so in After Effects, create a composition that is 1920 by 1920, and then we can right click, New, Shape Layer, and open it up and add in a path and as well as a stroke. So we can open up the path, and in case you forget the syntax of the create path expression, when you option click on the path property, you can go to the expression menu drop down and go to path property, create path. And by default, After Effects will create a square for you. And we can see how it works, by looking at expression, it basically using 4 points and then closing the shape. And if I want to manipulate the second point, right, I can change the coordinates to say 300 to make it further along. And then I can make it also like negative 100 to make it higher up. And if I want to manipulate a 4 point, maybe I can change it 400. So, and then if I want it to be open, instead of true, I can just type in 0. And you can see that we just have this line over here. So this is just a quick way of understanding how the expression works. I'm going to get rid of this expression. And then we're going to do our first exercise, which is just to create a single line in After Effects. So option click on the stopwatch. So a line is just simply 2 points. And we're going to create two variables, right? Called pt1. This is point number 1. And the first point will be 0, 0. And then point number 2 will be 0, maybe 300 for the y-axis. And let's put them into an array. And then by creating a variable called ARR, and you can type in square bracket, and then type in pt1 and pt2, and then semicolon. And then we can create the path and type in the array followed by a square bracket for the in tangent and the out tangent, because we're not going to use them in this tutorial. And then since I want it to be open, I just put it to be 0. And I create a path in over here in my my viewport. So if I want to change the coordinates, let's just say make it 500, I can make it longer. So I think the fun part is that you can actually connect this to the slider and then on now objects and play around with it. Okay, so that's a really simple exercise. And now let's do a challenge. Let's create a random zigzag line. We can't possibly type in all the coordinates ourselves, because a zigzag line may have like maybe a dozen of points, maybe 30 points, but we can easily generate them with a for loop statement. So a for loop statement allows us to generate a body of code for a specified amount of time. So what we're gonna do first is let's get rid of the first 3 lines of code, and let's create a variable called pts for points. And so basically, this is the number of points we're gonna have, and we are gonna create our first point to start at 0, 0, right? So our first point is make sure it's within another square bracket, and then our for loop statement. So we're gonna randomly create series of points for the rest of the points in this array, for element 1 and beyond. So we type in a for parentheses. So the counter variable, which is denoted by I, will start off at 1. So the I is an integer, semicolon. If I is less than or equals to the number of points variable we've created at the start, So it'll repeat 30 times. So notice we have to put in the equals as well. If it was less than, right, it will just repeat for 29 times. So make sure you have less than equals to PTS, semicolon, I plus plus. So the counter variable I will increase by 1 each time it repeats itself. So first of all, we're going to make use of the random function, create a variable called pause and type in random. And we can randomize an array. So we can type in random 150 in a square bracket. So what this does is going to randomize, generate a random value between 0 and 100 for the x and 0 to 50 for the y. And then we can put it into our array, right? The array element number is denoted by our counter variable I. So we can type in I is equals to pause and see what happens. So you can see I get a series of like jump up points over here, which is not very pleasant looking. Let me increase the y to 250. And it's not creating a zigzag because, it's all my y value is within the between 0 and 250. There's no increment to make it longer and longer. So what we need to do we need to change this expression. We need to create a variable called OLE and grab the previous element coordinate, and then just add on to it, increment upon it. So we can do so by typing, creating a variable called OLE array square bracket I minus 1 and then semicolon. And then we can type in, and then now we just want the y value. So we just want to add the y value. So 0, comma. So let's drop in our array over here and then square bracket 1 to get the y-axis and plus position. And you can see, I've created a zigzag line over here to make it even more obvious. Let me reduce the random y value to 50 to be like that. And if I wanted to, maybe I can put this to be about 60 points. So we can make it longer. And instead of 50, let's put 100, right? And if you want to really make it more obvious, let's put for the x-axis is randomize 300. So we have created, a random zigzag line over here. So that's the benefit of using for loop statement, right? We can easily add point without, manually typing ourselves. But here's one thing that we forgot to do. So if you scrub through the timeline, notice how it's changing. The path is changing at every single frame. That's because of our random function over here is generating a random value for each frame. We need to add in a seed random line, right? And we can type in I and then comma true. So this will basically make it have a fixed random value. So if I were to just scrub through the timeline, it'll be fine. And you can actually, create a slider value and add in a seed value of maybe any value, let's say 3, and the design will change. So it's like a generative zigzag line expression over here. All right, so now that we learned how to make a zigzag line, we can start writing expression for our cyberpunk lines. But first, let's learn about how it works. So in Illustrator, I have two diagrams to explain everything. So how we want our expression to behave when we are creating our points is that, each point will either go diagonal or it'll go straight. And they'll increment upon the previous point by a random value. So for us to do this, have this condition, we need to make use of our index number or our counter variable by seeing whether is it even or odd number. If it's an odd number, go straight. If it's an even number, and then you should go diagonal. And so to let After Effects know whether a number is even or odd, we can make use of the modulus operator. So what this does is that it produces a remainder when, the number, when x is divided by y, let's just say 1 divided by 2, right? The remainder is 1. We're talking about whole numbers here. And 2 divided by mod 2 will yield 0. So there's no remainder. If there's no remainder, it's an even number. So for 3 mod 2 will yield 1. So it's an odd number. So this will keep repeating itself, right? So that's how we're going to do it. To make it go straight, go diagonal, go straight is by using the modulus operator and the index number. So the next thing we need to create, right, is the condition to either go diagonal left or diagonal right. And this is a very simple condition we can set up. So we basically generate a random number for each iteration, right? We generate a random number between 0 to 1. And if this random number is less than 0.5, right, then go left. We can times like -1 for it to go left, and then times 1 to go right. So that's what we're gonna do for our expression. There's two conditions. So now we can get into writing our code, and I'll be using this app called Atom, which is a hackable text editor, since we can't see any real-time feedback in After Effects when we write our expression. So, and it's just easier and bigger for you guys to read and follow along. And so let's begin. So usually I like to write a comment, right, by opening with /, and I just put in user variable so anyone can understand what I'm writing. And I'm gonna create a variable called PTS and then semicolon. And then after that, I can create a random position. So this is the random position range I'm gonna randomize. So I'm gonna set it to about, I have the value between 0 to 100, and then semicolon again. And then I'm gonna create a seed value of 50, and then semicolon. And now we're gonna declare some variables, basically making them exist before we do our for loop statement. So we're gonna create, we can just type in var, comma, y. So this will be the coordinates for our points, right? We're not, assigning any value, we're just making them exist. So that's the purpose of declaration. And then we're gonna create another two more variables called C and mal. So this will be responsible for our direction change. So that's, can comment it, direction changer. And then I'm going to create another variable called vertices. So this is all our series of points. So let's create a square bracket. And we're going to create our first point to be at 0, 0, and then semicolon. And finally, we can write our expression. So we can write in, I'm going to write vertices array. So you guys can just, easily read and understand my code. So we can start a for loop statement. And I'm going to type in for I is equals to 1, right? I is less than or equals to PTS, the number of points there we put on top. I plus plus, so increment at every single loop, and then open up a curly bracket. And then first of all, let's create seed random, because I want the value to be a fixed random value. So I can add in I plus C. And then after that, comma, within the parentheses, comma, true, semicolon. And let's start off by creating a random choice, whether it'll go diagonal left or right. So we can type, put in assign a random value to C. So I'm going to put semicolon and then just write in create random num between 0 to 1. And then after that, I can type in, I'm going to use a conditional statement. I'm going to use a shorthand. So instead of writing if C is equals to this and then and then if else statement, right? Instead of writing that, I can do a shorthand by using a ternary operator. So I can write in C more than 0.5, right? Question mark. And then I can write in mal is equals to 1, and then colon mal equals to -1. So because it's just a simple statement, right? So what this means is that if C is more than 0.5, then, mal is equals to 1. If not, else is equals to -1. Okay, so this will be responsible for changing direction. And let's also get our O element value. So O LE is equals to our vertices. And then let's grab in I minus 1, semicolon. And now let's randomize our X and Y value. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you guys we have more breathing room over here. And so let's do our random. Let's randomize the Y value. And we can random, since we already have an array for the position on top, we can type in position 0 and then comma position 1. So what it's going to do is random between 0 and 100. So I could actually change this to 50 to 100. But later on, we can put in a slider value so we can have more controls. So for now, this is okay. And then for X, right, it can be, so for it to move diagonal, the movement, when it moves diagonal, the x and y needs to be the same. So we can put in x is equals to y, but because we want to change direction, we can type in mul, right, to go either left or right. And now we can write in our more conditional statement. So I'm going to just write comment conditional. If even number, go diagonal. And then if odd, go straight. All right, so we can write a conditional statement by typing if, and then I is mod equals to 2. If I mod 2 equals to 0, all right, and then curly bracket. And then what's going to happen? So we're going to, our vertices, our array, right? Our vertex or our point number is equals to, let's grab the O element, and then let's add on the X and the Y, and then semicolon. And then else, if not, right, do this instead. So we're going to do the same thing. We can actually copy this and just paste it over here. And then just put into, just instead of, we don't want X, we just want Y. That's it. And then that's our condition. Finally, we can write in a createPath, our createPath expression. So createPath, right, parentheses, our vertices array, and then our square bracket for in tangent and out tangent. And then let's have it be open and semicolon, and we're done. So you don't have to use Atom to write this. You can just open up, text editor or Notepad and type it in if you want. And I'm gonna go into After Effects, right? And then I'm just gonna paste my expression over here, and you can see our expression worked perfectly. It's zigzagging. And then, so let's explore how this works by creating slider control. So I'm gonna create a slider control called seed, right? Create one called seed, and then another one called points. And then let's put one min y, and let's duplicate Command D, min underscore, and then let's do max underscore y. So now we can just connect all the values. So let's for points, let's do that, and then let's do seed, and let's pick width to the seed slider. Same thing. Let's pick width the min x and y, min x, min y, sorry, and a max y. All right. So it's gonna disappear because we have no points. Let's give it 10 points and set it about 100. You can see it's growing. So maybe we can put about 1,000. Actually, that's too much. So, and then we can increase the number of points, maybe 200 instead. And then you can change the seed value and have fun with it. So now all you have to do is just Command D on the path, and you can create very interesting tech lines just like that. And if you want to change the design, it's if you just by changing seed value, you can change the design really fast. So that's the beauty of generative design. It's like you just need to write the code once, and you can just create lots of variants just like that. So this is nice, but then we want to have some branching as well, right? Because right now everything is just coming, is bunching at the top, so it's not very pleasant. So we can't really exactly do like true branching, where you generate lines without touching one another. But one of the most interesting result I came up with is the one that in the preview animation, and we're gonna write the expression for that. We're just gonna make some few minor adjustment to the expression. So what we can do is, okay, first of all, let's delete everything, right? And I'm gonna name this one called let's start, right? This is our main line. And I can Command D, and I'm gonna call this B1 for our branch. So what we're gonna do now is, B1 is gonna grab a random point from, the start line, right, and start growing from there instead. Instead of growing from 0.00, we're gonna just grow randomly, and we can go inside our expression over here. And what we can do is to first of all, right, we want to create let's type in a comment over here. Let's grab a random point, get random point on first path. Okay, so we're gonna create a variable. So we need to get the point first. So let's open this up, open our start path up. So let's type in, let's create a variable called my path is equals to, and pick width to the start path, semicolon. And we want to get a number of points because it's always changing based on our slider control. We can actually pick width to the slider, but just for, just to learn more about expression, we can just type it in ourselves. So we can type in my point, create a variable called my path points is equals to my path dot points, and then parentheses dot length. All right. Now that we got a number of points, we are going to select we're gonna get a random point. So we can type in my rand point is equals to. So we want to make sure it's a whole number. So we can do math.floor random, and then my path points. Okay. So let's just say if there is like 21 points, so it's gonna random between 0 to 21 points, and it's gonna be a whole number. And now I can select the point on the path. So I'm gonna call another variable called my selected point is equals to, let's see, my selected, PT is equals to my path dot points, and then parentheses, semicolon, no, sorry, not semicolon, square bracket, and add in my random point, semicolon. And now that we got this point over here, instead of this, in my vertices array, let's replace, instead of 0, 0, let's just paste it in. And one last thing we need to do to make sure that it doesn't randomize on every single frame, like the problem we had earlier on, we're going to type in seed random seed comma true, and just paste it in like that. And you can see that, if I hit Command Shift H to show my layer control, you can see that point 2 is growing out. It's from here. If I were to change the seed value, okay, you can see, my branch 1 is growing out from that random point over there. So the fun part begins now is I'm going to Command D on my branch line, and you can see I get a more intricate design like that. And I'm just going to press P, right, on my shape layer and set it to, let's reset the position, and then set my Y to be 0, so it'll be on top. All right, and we're gonna save that. And we are going to, let's open up a shape layer again. Let's add in a trim path. So yeah, we're actually done with writing expression, and I'm just showing you the process of like how my preview animation. So one thing to keep in mind that this expression is pretty heavy. So it might bog down your computer, just letting you guys know. And so once we add the trim path, we can, keyframe the end. And then after that, let's put 0 at the start. And we're just going to right click, keyframe assistant. Let's do easy ease. I'm gonna save just before it crash or something. And let's see how that plays out. I'm gonna reduce the point to also about like 15. So there's less calculation going on. And there we go. We have this very kind of procedural tech lines growing, right? And what I did for my preview animation is that what I would put a mirror, right? I will go create a mirror effect. And then after that, in my mirror effect, I would just divide it by 2 in the x-axis. And this will create, and then just Command Shift H to hide it. So this will create, make it symmetrical, make it more pleasant to look at. And I will just change the seed value until I get something interesting. So if you look at my build over here, right, I created 3 of them. And changed the color and stroke width, and and I have trim path going over it to show the growing. And that's how I did the procedural growing line at the start. And we're done. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, subscribe so this tutorial can get to more people. As always, if you made something with this tutorial, please tag me on Instagram at @ddesmondu because I would like to see what you came up with. Alright, that's all I have for you guys. I'll see you next time.